In this video, I am going to talk about the 15 things that I wish I had known as a beginner quilter, now that I've been quilting for almost 10 years now. And I hope this will shed some light on some things that beginners may not know. And who knows, may even help my fellow seasoned quilters as well. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Miriam. This is Obi. She's apparently wanting to be by me today. I'm sitting on the floor, and that makes it more fun, right? We like to be on the floor together, right? I have been quilting since 2016. I love quilting. I have made it my entire personality and my career. I think I'm allowed to speak on these things, and I just want to kind of share 15 things that I really wish I had known when I was first getting started. Number one, these are in no particular order. I'm just kind of mixing them up. I wrote out the list and then I just kind of mixed them up a little bit to make it a bit more interesting, hopefully. Number one, even the best of quilters need to use a seam ripper. It is not a bad thing to have to use your seam ripper. And I always kind of thought it was. It was like, oh no, I've messed up. You know, it kind of leans into that having a negative view of making mistakes. But with quilting, it's an art form, right? So just think of an artist that's doing a sketch. Do artists usually never use an eraser? I don't think so. They use erasers all the time. And same thing for quilters. Sometimes you need to use a seam ripper. Sometimes you don't like that seam that you just made. Sometimes you sew the wrong piece to the wrong other piece. You know, sometimes you sew something upside down or backwards, and that's totally okay. Take away the negative feelings and the negative viewpoints of making a mistake, because mistakes are how we learn, right? So we need to make mistakes to learn how to do something properly. And that's something I really wish I would have known, because I was really hard on myself, especially at the beginning. Whenever I'd have to use my seam ripper, I'd just be, oh no. Because people don't show themselves using seam rippers in tutorials. People do not show themselves using seam rippers in videos in general. I try to show when I have to use a seam ripper, I try to show it. I've made entire videos about having to seam rip an entire quilt apart from quilting because I didn't like how the quilting was turning out. That's something that I wish I would have known, and I want you to know too. It's okay to use a seam ripper. That's why we have that tool, because it is a necessity. Number two, pressing may be boring, but it makes such a huge difference. When I was first starting, I would avoid pressing anytime I could. You guys would cringe seeing me quilt when I was first starting out, because I would sew blocks together without pressing any seams. Some of the seams would be going one way, some of the seams would be going the other way. Really, the only time for the first few quilts that I made, I think really the only time I pressed it was when I had the entire quilt top done. And then I would press it so it would lay flat for basting. Yeah. Pressing makes a huge difference. It really does. And once you kind of get past kind of the initial, this is really boring, really repetitiveness of it all, especially when you're making like a whole bunch of half square triangles or something for a quilt. Once you get past that, it really is kind of one of those calm tasks that you can do while listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video or something. Bonus, if you can get a wool pressing mat. I love my wool pressing mat. It has made such a huge difference in my seams laying flatter, and I just really adore my wool pressing mat. So that is a huge thing for me, and that's something I wish I would have known. Pressing is important, even though it may not be the most exciting or thrilling task in quilting. Number three. Now, I'm not speaking negatively to my fellow quilt pattern designers, but some quilt patterns are not written well, or they are not written with a beginner in mind. Even if they say it's a beginner friendly pattern, there's too much assumption. You know, they assume that you should know all of these other things. So that's kind of something that I really try to do the opposite of in my patterns. I try to assume that this is someone's first quilt pattern that they've picked up, and this is what, they need everything explained. And that's totally fine. Yeah, just some patterns just aren't written well. The instructions aren't clear. They don't make sense. They don't include illustrations or diagrams of things. There's just all kinds of things that I wish I would have known going into working on a quilt. I know several times I would go into working on a pattern and I would just cut fabric one piece at a time instead of cutting it by strips and then subcutting from that, and just different things like that. And it does come from learning, but that is something that a pattern designer could include in a pattern to make it a little bit easier, especially if you're saying that your pattern is a beginner-friendly pattern. Then it should be friendly to beginners. Not that it's just an easy quilt to throw together. I think the pattern should be written well for beginners. That's my personal opinion. That's my 2 cents. Again, I'm not trying to be negative or whatever towards other pattern designers. Everybody writes differently. Everybody does their instructions differently. That's just something that I noticed when I was starting out, before I had even had a thought of making my own patterns, So I just remember that really being a struggle for me for several patterns that I tried at the beginning. Let's move on to number 4. Quality over quantity when it comes to fabric can be a good rule of thumb. Oh my goodness. You see these quilting influencers on YouTube or on Instagram, and they've just got cabinets full of fabric. Now, this is my fabric shop, okay? This is not my personal stash. But you see these influencers with incredible stashes, all the beautiful fat quarter bundles just stacked high on their shelves. It looks so cute. They've got wild organization of all their yardage and everything, and it's just hundreds, if not thousands of yards of fabric. We all know, we have seen those stashes, and it's like, oh, I would love to have that. You basically have your own personal fabric shop, right? That you can go and pick and choose for your projects. And that is great. But I would like to challenge my old self, my previous self, to, instead of going to Joann's, I know we don't have Joann's anymore, and buying like 2 huge bags full of yardage that I still have some of that yardage, I would challenge myself to go to a fabric shop, a quilting shop, and purchase, 1 or 2 bundles or some beautiful yardage specifically for a project that I know I want to make. Yes, it would cost a little bit more. I mean, realistically, it's not that crazy more expensive than what we could get at Joann's. Yes, sometimes Joann's had crazy deals and stuff where we could get very, very good discounts on fabric, but sometimes you had to make the trade-off with, yes, you get the cheaper fabric, but sometimes that fabric isn't as nice quality. It doesn't feel as nice. It's not as soft and just cozy feeling. Also, some of their fabrics were kind of known for fading quickly, and which is a bummer because I loved Joann's before they went under, and I stood firm on, if that's where you can shop, then that's where you should shop. But you can basically shop anywhere online. That's less of a issue, I think, for a lot of people. You can shop anywhere. You can shop my little shop if you want. I've just started selling a selection of Riley Blake Design and Art Gallery fabrics. So yeah, quality over quantity is good for fabric. But if your budget just cannot squeak out that money for, the nicer fabric, a really great place to find fabric is, thrift stores. There are actually some stores that are set up that are specifically craft supply thrift stores. I think there's a large one out near Kansas City. I haven't gone to it yet, but I've heard of other ones from other people out on near the East Coast and stuff. If you can find one of those in your area, that could be a really great place to find fabric. Another great way to find fabric, which is how I found some stuff, is through estate sales or garage sales. Those people are just trying to get rid of stuff, you know? So that's a really great spot to find fabric. It doesn't have to be just like a little fat quarter bundle or yardage. You could use tablecloths, sheets. There's so many different options with fabric, right? It doesn't have to be the fancy designer fabric straight from the bolt, you know? That is something I wish I would have known. Quality over quantity, because I have some fabric that it's like, oh my goodness, why do I have this? And there was fabric that I only bought because it was on sale, and now when I look at it, it's like, why did I get that? That is not something that I would use at all. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Number 5, there are a lot of opinions out there on the internet, in quilt shops, wherever, that some quilters will treat as fact, but they might not actually be facts. They might just be an opinion. For example, you must use a 50 weight thread for piecing your quilt blocks. This is a biggie. This is a biggie, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but normally I use a 30 weight quilting thread for everything. I use it for my piecing, for my quilting, for my binding, all of it. And I have had people get quite upset when I tell them that. They don't like that I use 30 weight. I mean, all of my quilts that you've seen me make, pretty much all of them, I've used that 30 weight to piece, and my points come out. My seams look great. My sizing is correct. Does it make a difference in the width of a seam? I mean, maybe a tiny, minuscule difference, but I haven't had issues. And that is something that I feel like if I had started the YouTube channel when I was younger, like when I was first starting quilting, and I had said, I'm using 30 weight thread to piece my blocks, and someone was like, you can't use that. You shouldn't be telling anyone to do that. Terrible person for using 30 weight for piecing your blocks, and just getting very upset, and why would you do that? And da-da-da-da. You know, that would have just been crushing to me. You know, now I'm kind of like, well, because I know it works. So, you know, it's just my personal choice. It's my quilt. I can use what thread I want to use. Right? And, but that's just one example of a rule or a fact in the quilting realm that people will really stand firm on that opinion, and they'll let you know. That's just something to remember. And I remember whenever I was just looking up, trying to find forums on like how to do something or why something wasn't working, you would find opinions on opposite sides of what to do for everything. And everyone thinks that they're right. Right? I mean, this is a broader issue in life in general. That's how it is. There's a right and a wrong way to do something in people's minds, when in reality, and something that I have learned is there are several right ways to do a lot of things, you know, and sometimes there's not even a wrong way to do it. It's just not your way. And if my way works for me, then that's okay. And we don't have to argue about it. You don't have to try to make me feel bad. I'm certainly not going to try to make you feel bad for how you do something. We just have different opinions, and that's okay. That kind of goes along with my next point, which is number 6. The quilt police are real. They are. Don't let anybody try to gaslight you into thinking that they're not real. And if someone is saying that the quilt police are not real, I'm just saying, they could be not looking in the mirror. No, I'm joking with you guys, but they are real, okay? There is a small group. It's not a large group, but there is a small group of quilters that are just plain mean, okay? I've had a few of them in my comment section on different videos. It's wild that you would type out such a rude comment that would obviously be extremely discouraging if I was just starting out. And that really irks me because I know that there are beginner quilters that are getting those comments. And it just drives me crazy. I just want to throw a protective quilt over all of the beginners so no quilt police can find them and discourage them from continuing doing what they're doing, because quilting is such a wonderful, fun hobby. I don't want anyone to be discouraged from doing it because some lady 5 states away says, well, that looks terrible. You shouldn't be doing that. That is not how that's done. That looks horrible. You know, like what, why would you do that? What purpose is that supposed to serve? I can't wrap my mind around it. Yeah, I don't understand it. It really irks me, if you couldn't tell. But they are real, but it's a very small group of people. But it's unfortunate that those negative voices a lot of times are the loudest, and they're the ones that stick in our minds, you know. I have heard from so many quilters over the last couple of years doing YouTube that, you know, they had someone in their past when they tried quilting when they were younger, and they just said awful things to them, made them feel terrible, and then they stopped. And now they're trying quilting again, you know, 30, 40 years later. Can you imagine that? Having that kind of effect on someone, stopping them from pursuing an art, pursuing a craft, and then that damaging their confidence so badly that they don't try that craft again for decades. It's disgusting is what it is. I'm not going to go any further on that. It just really irks me, and I hate it. So I want my protective quilt over all of my beginner quilters and let you know it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay if your seams aren't straight. It's okay if your blocks are wonky. It's okay if your quilt isn't square. You're going to learn, and we learn as we go. And don't listen to the quilt police. I know it's easier said than done. I still think about some comments that I've gotten in the past, and it still hurts my feelings. But, you know, we just have to move on. And no, it really doesn't matter what they say. It really doesn't. It matters what you feel about what you're making, right? All right. Number 7, just because a big name in the industry, in the quilt industry, a quilting influencer, whatever you want to call them, just because they recommend a product does not mean that it is the best product for you. This is something that I kind of wish I would have thought about, because you see influencers pushing products, you know, claiming that, oh, this is the best thread, this is the best iron, this is the best sewing machine brand, whatever. It can get very confusing and depressing. For me, it was depressing because I didn't have a huge budget when I was starting out, so I couldn't afford the fancy sewing machine. I had a discounted Singer machine. I couldn't afford the fancy thread. I bought Coats and Clark, and that's still what I use just because I love it. I could only afford, you know, Joanne fabrics, you know, and hearing from these influencers like, this is what you should be using. You know, I really try not to do that with anything. Even if I'm recommending a product, I try to say, you know, I love this thing, but it's not the only one out there, right? Like, I have the Aliso iron. I love that iron. It is great. It works wonderful for me, but it's not the only iron that works. That's just an example. And we just kind of live in a culture, especially, I think probably people are more influenced in the younger generations, maybe millennials and younger. It's just really easy to be influenced by someone on the internet. Like, oh, they say that's the best. I need to get that. You know, this happens a lot in the quilting realm with rulers. You know, Oh, you have to have this ruler. You have to try this ruler and to make this block. Oh, this ruler changed my life. You know, whatever, whatever people are saying about these quilting rulers. And my goodness, quilting rulers are expensive. I cannot believe how expensive they are. I mean, I know acrylic is expensive and then it costs money to have them cut and all of that, but my goodness, if you bought every ruler that influencers were pushing, you'd have a lot of rulers. You'd have a lot of rulers and you'd be spending a lot of money, and you might use that ruler once. I don't have a lot of rulers, and if I need to come up with a template, I'll try to draw it up on cardstock or cardboard and then cut it out and use it. So yeah, that's something that I wish I would have known, because I probably wouldn't have felt so bad about what I was using. But I've always kind of been the type to try to kind of rebel against the mainstream. So even when I did have money from like my custom quilt business, I wasn't going out and buying like the thread or like the fancy machines or whatever. You know, I still tried to make wise financial decisions as I went. And I'm still trying to do that, right? Still don't have the fanciest of everything, and that's fine, because everything that I have now works for me. Number 8, time-saving shortcuts are amazing, and you should learn as many as you can for the projects that you want to do. So, for example, if you have to make a bunch of half square triangles for a project, learn the 8 at a time half square triangle method. It is so awesome. I have a chart for free. It's down in the description box of this video that will help you figure out the math for any size half square triangle you need. So it'll help you figure out the math for the starting squares that you need. And that's one that I use all the time, the 8 at a time half square triangle method. That's one of the things that, going back to number 3, not all patterns are written well. I remember working on a quilt that was like, I don't know if it was all half square triangles, but there was a whole bunch of half square triangles in there. And they showed you how to make, it was either 1 half square triangle at a time or 2 half square triangles at a time. And it's like, we could have saved so much more time if we would have done the 8 at a time method. Yeah, that's something that I really encourage you to learn. So another one that I really love to do is chain piecing. So you just sew pieces together and you just keep on sewing the different pieces of the blocks together in a long chain instead of cutting the thread. It saves a little bit of thread, and it saves time, really. And it's just fun to do. It's just fun to have a big long chain of pieces after you've sewn a bunch together. So I really encourage to try to figure out different shortcuts. If you can't find a tutorial on it, maybe play around and see if you can figure it out yourself. So that's another thing that I wish I would have known at the beginning, because would have saved a lot more time. And a lot of the shortcuts are just plain fun. They're just fun to do. Number 9, no one you give a quilt to is going to be judging your seams or judging your quilting stitches, judging the length of your stitches, seeing if it's consistent all the way around on your quilt top. It's just not happening, okay? So don't worry about it. That is something that I really worried about, and I didn't want to give a quilt to anybody because my stuff didn't look great at the beginning. But no one is worried about that. They're focused on the amazing gift that you just gave them. So that's something to keep in mind. And I try to encourage anybody that has made their first quilt that they want to give someone, go ahead and give it to them. Don't worry about them looking at it and finding any flaws. They're not going to. Even if they do see a flaw, they're not going to say it. So don't worry about it. Give it to them and focus on the wonderful gift-giving opportunity that you have. Number 10. This is important. Take a break when things get stressful. Do not keep going. Quilting is supposed to be fun and relaxing and, therapeutic and all of these things. So if you're feeling super stressed out, if you're not able to figure out a block or whatever, Take a break. This is something that I wish I would have known early on in my quilting career or quilting journey. And I wish I would implement even now, because sometimes, you know, I just really want to figure something out. And if it's not happening, I get very frustrated and stressed and just, oh, why isn't it working? I'm terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. You know, you just kind of go through this spiral of like frustration, right? But sometimes it's best just to stop, walk away from the project for a little bit, and then come back. Sometimes it even helps to, if you're working on like a larger quilt and it's just getting monotonous and it's just like, oh, this is so stressful. How am I going to get this done? Really, sometimes it's best to stop, set it aside, and work on a smaller project and just kind of just for fun, right? Do something a little creative, do something a little out of your comfort zone, maybe that's going to stretch your skill set and kind of reinvigorate your creative juice, reinvigorate your creativity. Taking a break is very important, okay? So if you're getting stressed, walk away. Number 11, Elmer's school glue for basting my quilts. I wish I would have known this. This would have saved my fingers from getting poked. It would have saved many hours of seam ripping quilting stitches because I would get a weird pucker on the back of a quilt. And mind you, I was doing custom quilts and still pin basting. I hadn't started Elmer's school glue yet. So I really felt the pressure of having the quilting look good and there not being any puckers. So, and pin basting, it's time consuming and I never got it to work well, okay? It was just very, very frustrating. So glue basting, I wish it was something that I had known at the very beginning. If you were a beginner quilter and you have not heard of glue basting, it is a game changer. I am trying to influence you right now. It's very cheap. Elmer's school glue now is a great time to get it because it's kind of back to school time, at least here in the States. Go and pick up a few bottles of the Elmer's school glue, okay? Make sure it's Elmer's school glue, no other glue. It works so great. I've done several videos on it. I have heard probably from thousands of quilters by now about how they have tried it and it has completely changed their quilting journey. It's made basting so much easier. It washes out when you're done and it's just a really great method of basting. Number 12, swapping out your needle more than every 3 to 4 months is probably a good idea. I would use my needle until it broke, basically. And I just didn't know that you were supposed to change it out. Now, I don't change mine out as often as some people say you should. I've heard different recommendations from different people. Again, this is one of those opinions that can seem as fact when someone's giving them to you. But I've heard anywhere between 8 to 20 hours, every 8 to 20 hours, you should switch out your needle. But I think it really depends on your machine, what needle you're using, and just kind of what you're using it for. You can be the judge of when you need to change it out. I try to switch mine out when I can tell the stitches aren't perfect, right? I have the Juki TL 2010Q. Wonderful machine, by the way. It's not a fancy machine, but it's a workhorse and it works great for what I use it for. But I can kind of tell by how the stitches look when I need to switch out my needle. You kind of get to know your machine. So it's a relationship, you and your machine. You just don't want your needle to be super dull because then it just doesn't do as good of a job, right? It could still get the job done. It just may not do as good of a job. Certainly if your needle gets bent or anything, you should change it. Don't leave it bent because it could break and that's no good. Number 13, it is okay to treat yourself to a new tool or a new notion or some pretty fabric once in a while. This is something that I wish I would have known and implemented when I was starting out, because getting yourself a little new goodie or new tool to try or whatever can really, again, reinvigorate your excitement for the hobby, and it can potentially make something easier if you're trying to figure out something. And like I said with the rulers, I mean, if you see a ruler that you think, whoa, I would use that all the time and that would make life so much easier. For example, the stripology ruler. I've heard from lots of people that are using that ruler and they say they love it. It works great. And if you're able to, I think you should treat yourself and get one, right? Now, I haven't bought one yet. I haven't bit the bullet because they're so expensive, and I am such a frugal person when it comes to that stuff. I just feel like, well, would it really save me that much time? Would it really be worth it? So I need to listen to my own advice, and if I think I actually would use it, I should get one. I just haven't done it yet. But yeah, so once in a while, it's okay to treat yourself. It's okay to treat yourself and get yourself something nice. Now, I don't think you should go into debt. I don't think you should go buy a super fancy sewing machine if you cannot afford it. That's just my opinion. If you want to save up for one and then purchase it, then go ahead. There are boundaries that you should set when choosing to treat yourself. You know, you don't want to just pay a ridiculous amount of money for something and then be stressed about, oh, now I have to pay off that credit card or whatever, you know? I mean, it's your own personal choice. Do what you want. But just for me, I wouldn't want to do that because that would just be stressful, feeling like, oh, I got to make that payment. I got to make that payment. I prefer to save up and then pay for stuff. So that's my opinion anyways. Number 14. This is a really important one. And this is something that I wish I would have done more at the beginning. Take lots of pictures and videos, but take lots of pictures of your quilts. I am so mad at myself that I did not take pictures of a bunch of my custom quilts that I made. I don't know why I didn't, or I would just take pictures to send to my customers, but then I didn't save the pictures. They were on a different phone and I just never saved them, and I'm really frustrated that I didn't because that would have been so much fun to look back on those, it being several years after I've made them. But take lots of pictures. It's really fun to be able to look back on how far you've come with your skills. It's really fun to just walk down memory lane and remember, oh yeah, I made that quilt with this fabric, and oh, I made that for that person. If you're making a quilt for someone, get a good picture of them with the quilt. It's just really fun to have those pictures and those memories on your phone or on your computer, wherever you keep your photos. But take lots of pictures. Even take pictures of the process. That's kind of fun to look back on and remember, oh yeah, I made that block this way. I should do that again. You know, it's fun to have those pictures to look back on. And I wish I would have done that more in the beginning of my quilting journey. And number 15, the most important thing that I wish I kind of would have known and implemented, and the most important advice that I would like to give to all my beginner quilters. Just try it. Try whatever skill you were afraid to try. So if you're really wanting to try foundation paper piecing, but you don't know how, just try it. Go for it. Find some tutorials. Print out some practice simple blocks and go to town. Try it out, right? If you want to try English paper piecing, try it. If you want to try free motion quilting for the first time, just try it. I promise you, you will have fun. As long as you're not stressed, you want to go into it with a sense of excitement and a sense of, I'm just going to try this. And just keep reminding yourself of what is the worst possible thing that could happen. This is a question that I ask myself in daily life. It's not just in quilting. If I'm going to do something, or I need to do something, or I'm scared to do something, just ask yourself, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? And if it's not a terrible outcome, then why not just try it, right? This is how we learn. Trying new things is how we learn. Pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone is how we learn. I would have loved to do this a bit more in the beginning. When I first started quilting, I was trying all kinds of new stuff because it's like I got bit by the quilting bug and I was just obsessed with it. You know, my channel name is Stitch Obsessed. That's not an exaggeration. I was just so excited that I finally found a craft and a hobby that I was not great at the beginning, but I could do. I felt like I could improve in. And there were so many things to try. So I was trying sewing with flannel, sewing with quilting cotton. I was trying applique, different types of applique, all kinds of stuff. I tried foundation paper piecing at the very beginning and it was awful. Again, I'm not great at foundation paper piecing now. I still struggle with it. I'll be 100% honest with that. It's just very confusing for my little brain. But I still try it once in a while because I would like to push myself out of my comfort zone. And I just think, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen, right? So that is kind of what I want to leave you guys with. Just try it. If there is something that you've been wanting to try, but you just haven't been able to get up the courage or the gumption to try it, I would love to challenge you to try it, because you never know. It could be good, could be life-changing. I mean, quilting has been life-changing for me, you guys. Literally, it has been life-changing. And I love it so much, and it's such a joy for me to be able to share my excitement for quilting with everybody. Those are the 15 things I wish I would have known as a beginner quilter, and also the 15 things I would like all of the beginner quilters that are watching this to learn, and learn from my mistakes, learn from my experience, and go out and try some really cool stuff. You can do it. I believe in you. What is something that you wish you had known as a beginner quilter? I would love to hear what you wish you would have known when you were first starting quilting. And let's have a fun discussion in the comments, okay? Quilt police, go on to another video. This is not the one. All right. This has been a really fun video to make. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you would like to subscribe to my channel, get more of this encouragement, and I do all kinds of tutorials. I do a lot of free motion quilting tutorials, quilt tutorials, and I just have a lot of fun sharing my love of quilting and trying to teach so it makes sense, right? And all of that. So if you would like to subscribe, I would love for you to subscribe. Please give this video a like. It'll push it out to more people, and hopefully more beginner quilters will see it and know that they're not alone and they can continue learning and growing in this wonderful craft. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. If you want to check out my quilt shop, link is in the description of all my videos. I'm going to be having a whole bunch of kits and bundles up in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be working on that like the rest of this week and into next week. So we're going to get a lot of stuff done. And I'm so excited to show you what I have been kind of planning and working on. So have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you very soon, all right? Bye. You going to help me record today? What do you think? Oh, she's just a baby. Oh my goodness. Such a baby. All right. You going to let mommy record now? You going to let me record?